This week on the Doughnut Box Podcast, we talk about one of Chris and I's jobs and the characters that were there. Just a preface, we had a guy who used to read his phone up close just like this. Why'd he do that? Listen to it in the old fashion.
Now, we're also going to explore on the jail report why a guy is getting 22 years for stealing a TV remote. Why is he getting that much time? We'll find out. And then on the donut hole, see if Micah can take today's slang and match it with the slang that we used to use as kids.
Oh man, skibidi toilet. And then on What Fries My Donuts, we talk about a particular airline. No, it's not American, but they're being un-American with some of the changes that they're making. So we're going to talk about that on What Fries My Donuts. We have all that and more this week on the Doughnut Box Podcast. So let's roll that intro. Hi, I'm Micah.
And I'm Chris.
And we've been friends for over 20 years.
Surprisingly, we haven't killed each other yet. Years ago, we started our own variety show, and it sucked.
Now that we're adults, we decided to give it another try. Like in the movie, life is like a box of donuts. You never know which one's gonna be the next one.
Wait a second, it's chocolates.
Oh, right. Okay, well, let's start the show.
This is the Doughnut Box Podcast.
Chris, we are here. Episode 17 of Season 4. Season 4 is really rolling along, man. We are really moving. This whole year has been moving really, really fast. I can't believe we're already 17 episodes in. We've been doing 17 episodes with our lovely faces here on camera. So if you're listening to us over on audio or on Spotify, Apple Music, RSS, iHeart, any of those arenas there, go ahead and go find us over on YouTube at the Doughnut Box Pod. That's DOUGHNUT Box Pod. Go find us over there so you can see our wonderful faces, interact with us over there, and subscribe to our channels on that front. So, Chris, I'm excited for this week. We have talked about this in the audio versions of this episode before, but, you know, we always love to go back to the characters of this particular job that we had, and that was the boot corral. If you listen to last week's episode, we talked a little bit about it was one of my first jobs, one of my first B2 Uncle Sam paying jobs there. So, no, I wasn't paid by the government, but I had to pay taxes on it. That was one of the first ones I had to pay taxes on. And so we have some characters because we ran into so many people in the retail world and specifically the Western retail world because we sold boots, we sold hats, we sold the shirts, we sold all that stuff. So we have 3 people we're going to talk about, not 4, not 2, 3 that we're going to talk about today. And Chris, do you want to start off with the first one? Who are we talking about first?
Yeah, I'm going to go out of order out of the ones that we discussed, but this first one, I would like to call him Nacho Libre. That's what I'm going to call him. You know why? Because you reminded me of Nacho Libre.
Except not as cool.
Can't tell you why. So as Micah referred to last week, we both got jobs at Boot Corral at the same time. And we were both working in the stock room. And so we would prep the boots, all that stuff. And so Micah was going back to school. During the summer, he could work a lot more, but he was going to school. And so it was just me and the other, we called her the receiving manager, but she didn't really do her job that well. So the holidays were coming up and we needed to hire some help. And so we hired another guy, but he was also part-time. He was in college. So him and Micah would come in the afternoons, but we needed someone in the morning time to help us. And I was working full-time. And so we hired Nacho Libre. He drove a Bumblebee yellow truck, like Bumblebee yellow. That's what I remember. And so we thought he seemed like a really nice guy, but this guy was not a hard worker at all. This guy would sit down and he would do the work. He kind of moved at a snail's pace. And when you're training someone the first couple of weeks, you don't expect them to go that fast because they're still learning. But this guy also didn't have any social awareness. And so like he tried hitting on the receiving manager, which by the way, she was not that great looking.
She had the nickname of Mudflat for a reason.
Yeah, she was very homely. She had a great personality. But not even then. I remember him like hitting Nacho Libre hitting on Junior. That's what we called her. And we were just like, what the heck are you doing? And then so I remember this one time, Nacho Libre liked to fall asleep a lot. Like he would go to his truck on his lunch break and he would fall asleep, which is fine. If you're on your lunch break, we would get an hour lunch break. That's fine. Do what you want to do. But he would also fall asleep in the middle of like prepping the merchandise. And so I'll let you take it over from here.
So something else too, he used to, which, hello Blanche, how are you doing? We might get a cameo from my cat here, but he used to make almost like a throne chair with the boxes. I don't know how exactly to describe it. He would like kind of put all the boxes in a way to where he'd make himself like a little chair. And so he would be doing this, and I don't know why, but I always remember it being mid-shirts. It was always like when he was doing shirts is when he would fall asleep. And it's because shirts, I mean, don't get me wrong, they had a lot of detail that they had to be taken out. Depending on the brand, you had to take off these little plastic clips. There was like these needles that you'd have to take out. And obviously the needles are important because you don't want somebody trying on the merchandise and getting stabbed. Like that was the biggest thing that you don't want to have happen. So he'd be doing these little plastic clips and whatever, and he'd be awake 1 minute, just like my grandfather. And then another moment, you'd hear him just like snore, and he would have the shirt in his hand. He'd kind of be doing this number, and you'd have to bump him awake. And I remember there was one time that the manager caught him doing that, and he was none too happy, of course, of like, what am I paying you for, and anything like that. And I remember this guy, old Nacho Libre, making the comment, it's like, well, maybe if you paid me more, I wouldn't fall asleep. And I remember it being like, he was like, what'd you say? And it was like that My Cousin Vinny moment where he got in trouble with the judge, and he's like, what, B? What'd I say? What'd I say? He was acting like he didn't say nothing. He's like, what'd I say?
But he didn't, like, it was kind of like, bro, this is not the right time to be making a joke. And the boss, Jim, was already in a bad mood already.
Oh, yeah.
So he said it, and then he was like, what'd you say? And it was like, and we were all
and
there,
it wasn't
we were just like,
you were like, oh, man. And it wasn't just like, what'd you say? It's just like, you say something like that to me, I'll take you out in the parking lot right now. And he said something like, ooh, okay. He had a way of making you work double time, because after that we were like, we need to start getting some stuff going because we don't want to be the next one on his victim list. But yeah, he had this yellow truck, and yeah, he was always trying to get that receiving manager like, go out to lunch with me. And, this is a family program, but I'm going to bring this up. I remember like he kept like insinuating, he's like, yeah, I've got prophylactics in my car. I think that's what you call it, right?
I guess so.
Birth control methods in my car. And it's just like, why are you telling us that? And he would be like, he'd just be saying this stuff, bro. And the other thing was, the man was quite gassy. That was the other thing too. He'd be just letting them rip, and that whole back room would just be stinking and whatnot. And he actually lasted a lot longer than I thought he was going to. We thought he was going to get fired a good ways in, especially with how much he slept and how much he got caught. And then if you remember last week, I also talked about how you had to be very precise in the tagging of the particular merchandise, making sure the model numbers and the UPN numbers matched up and things like that. And this guy was not like that. Like, he did not
we
care.
were like, never give him a tagging gun at all. Like, never give one, because he would get it wrong every time.
He would get that wrong every time. So all we trusted him with was take the plastic clips off and take the needles out and try to make a barrier between the receiving manager and him, because...
Didn't you get written up because of him? Because
I got written up because of him.
That got mistagged. I remember that.
Yep. Yeah, because they got mistagged, and the whole deal was we closed at 9:00, and if you go over 9:00, that's going over the line of getting paid and things like that. So the company is technically losing money. So we pushed out a last batch of jeans, and this guy just tagged willy-nilly. Like, he was just like, whatever, and just tagged them all however he wanted to tag them. And so what ended up happening was the manager saw this very expensive pair of jeans that was marked for like $12 and knew like, yeah, that wasn't the right thing. And so we started looking through all the merchandise. And what was hard is a lot of the times this stuff was already put out on the floor. So we had to like go through all the stock. We had to go through the full sheet of paper and say, okay, here's what came in these boxes, and then go pull them off the shelf and then re-tag them, which took a while. So I got written up for that. And
I think that was because y'all were tagging them together. Like, y'all both were tagging the same set of jeans together, and they were like, well, we don't know who tagged what, so we're writing you both up. Like, I remember that being that conversation.
I remember the particular manager was like, listen, I know it's not you, but it's policy. Like, we have to write everybody up. It's like, I get it. So But yeah, I think he ended up getting 3 write-ups, and that's what ended up getting him fired.
He was
but
gone before
again,
the holidays, though. He was gone
yeah,
before
he
Black
was.
Friday. So I think he got hired he got hired in September, late September, and then he was gone by like early November. So he didn't last that long.
He didn't last that long, but the mark that he made it feel like he was there for forever. All right, so do you want to move to the next character?
Yeah, I'll let you tell the next character.
All right, so the next character, as I alluded to in the intro, there was a particular womanizer MMA fighter who we're going to call Mr. Crane. Mr. Crane, like with the whole Mr. Miyagi thing, Karate Kid doing the whole thing. Well, Mr. Crane, again, he was a nice guy. He was a salesman, but he was blinder than a bat. Like, he was so blind. How blind was he? He was so blind that he would look at his phone and he would do this. And he always had gum in his mouth. And it was kind of like his signature move. And he would always do this number. So all I remember, or a lot of what I remember from him, is looking at his phone and he would just talk. He'd be like, yeah, I sold a lot this week. I told that girl she was pretty fine.
But it was also one of those type deals where like, everyone that was working there was like in their early 20s, and he was way too old to be like working. And now there were certain people like the managers that had been there for a while, and some people that had like been there for a long time. And then we had actually another guy that was like old as dirt, which we'll go into that another time. But this guy,
he's still learning to this day.
He was one of those guys that was like, he was still trying to be young, but he was he was like, I don't know, 35, right? Maybe 35.
I would say between 35 and 38. Like, he wasn't quite 40, but he was definitely pushing 40. Like, he was
but
on
he was
that.
Still trying to be cool,
scale.
like a young 20-year-old, and that's what made him stand out.
Yeah, that's what made him stand out a ton. He was not a good salesman. So by this point, I had moved from the stock room to the sales floor, which was it was all commission based, right? So it was very competitive, very cutthroat. But I moved out there. And, some people looked out for each other. Me and him did look out for each other because he was a cool guy. I even remember this was in my partying phase. So he and I partied one time. And Chris, I don't know if you know this story, by the way, but he and I partied one time. I had this girlfriend, and she was a part of the narcissist episode, if you've heard that one. So not a great girlfriend. But at the time, Mr. Crane was going out on the date with this one gal, and she had dropped out of college. And unfortunately, this was kind of, I wouldn't say a common story, but Boot Corral kind of collected people who had dropped out of Texas Tech and was like trying to bridge the gap of maybe I go back to college, or maybe even they got in trouble. So this particular gal was like in a halfway house. She was like 26, right? And so she was kind of lost. I don't know. And anyway, so Mr. Crane was like, oh yeah, like that was his type. Like, whoever was like, oh yeah. Anyway, so he was like, let's go on a date. We're going to do a double date, like me and her, and then you and your girlfriend. Like, and so I went, and we went to Dairy Queen first. And then after that, like, let's go to the club. And the club that we went to was,
I know this story.
I didn't realize that it was a gay bar once we first went there, but we went to this club, and so we're sitting there, and the whole thing was, I was underage and my girlfriend was underage. And so the whole thing was like, we wanted to get drinks, right? And so this was kind of a place that people knew, like, hey, you can go and get drinks, and maybe they'll ask for your ID, maybe they won't. And I almost got into a fight this night because a guy came up to my girl, was like, hey, come with me. And I was just like, who the heck is this? Take my girl, whatever. And come to find out, I go up to this situation and be like, hey, man, like, you're not going to take my girl. And my girl was like, dude, he's gay. And it was this whole awkward scenario. Then when I realized, like, hey, this was definitely a gay bar, was they were about to have this drag show. And Mr. Crane was like, yeah, maybe I should join up and be in it. And I remember being like, okay, he's joking, until he tried to sign up for it. And I was like, okay, maybe he's not kidding. And he's like, you should do it too. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm okay. But it was just it was like this weird night. And the only thing that I remember was, one, I was like 19. And you got to think, if you've never listened to the podcast before, I grew up a good little Christian boy with a semi-Pentecostal background and not sheltered, but at the same time, I'd never been to a place like this before. And so we had that. That was the first drag show I'd ever seen. And Mr. Crane tried to be a part of it. And we ended up dropping this girl off at a halfway house later on. So it was kind of a interesting experience all the way around.
But he was also very creepy, especially to this one particular saleswoman. I don't know what we want to name her, but
I've got names, but we can't on the podcast.
So she was like, she was nice and she was pretty friendly and all that. But he was very creepy towards her. And I remember him being like, she came in one day and like her hair was like still wet, all that stuff. And Mr. Crane was like, "Oh, I just love like wet hair. Like I love that. That's it. That's attractive.
That gets me going. That really gets me going."
Yeah. And we were just like,
yeah.
What? And she filed like some harassment complaints about him. Because I don't know if it was that comment or if it was something else that he did that like filed that complaint.
And he actually had two. So he had that one complaint from her. And then there was an assistant manager and she'd wear these particular pair of pants. And I remember he slapped her on the behind and it was this whole thing of it was an accident. Oh my God. Like my hand just happened to go back and swing and hit your butt. And it was an accident sort of thing. So I remember he had like 2 strikes against him. And I remember when he finally got fired, it was because so there was something else called busting payroll. And pretty much what that is when you're making commission-based sales and you don't make enough sales and they have to basically cover your end because you didn't make above minimum wage commission-wise. It was called busting payroll and they would write you up for that. And so that was his 3rd strike. He had like the 2 harassments and then he had that, and so he ended up being out. Last that I heard from him, it was kind of interesting because he's like in his 40s and he's like with like a 20-year-old now. He was like dating a 20-year-old. Like I still follow him on Facebook. He don't really put too much out there, but it was like, okay, I still living that lifestyle, huh? I mean, some people are uniquely their own, man, but I just remember like, and maybe we're not describing it too amazingly, but like to know the guy, he was a character. He was one of a kind. Like, there is no other Mr. Crane, I'll tell you that much.
He would also like to stir stuff up and just laugh about it. And again, he was that, like, picture Matthew McConaughey in that movie where, like, they're all standing against the wall, and he's like, the thing I love about high school girls is I get older and they stay the same age. Like, that was Mr. Crane.
Yeah, and, he lied about some things. He was an MMA fighter at one point, and he was like, yeah, I beat up Donald Cowboy Cerrone. I remember, like, that was his biggest thing. And it was just like, okay, sure. Okay, all right. And let's move on to our 3rd one. And Chris, go ahead. I'll let you intro the 3rd one here.
I won't say his full name, but you have to say his full name to get. If you ever seen King of the Hill, think of Buck Strickland, Hank's manager, that just loves to party. Good old country Texas boy, like everything. And he had a good old, I don't know if it was the East Texas accent or West Texas accent. I don't remember which one it was, but he like, my name's Jeff. He like, my name's Jeff. He like, and there was this kid there. Everybody had a nickname with him. So Mr. Jeff liked to give everybody a nickname. And there was this kid that used to work for him, and his last name was Donay, but they called him Doughnut. He'd be like, Doughnut, come put that 3/4 inch plank on the wall. Come on now. And then there was this girl that we worked with in El Paso. He called her Snake Eyes. And every time he'd say, like, Snake Eyes. It's like, how you doing, Snake Eyes? He was just a character because he was like, he would manage like you during the day. So what we would go on are these things called boot camps. So whenever there was a new store building in a new city, instead of hiring like contractors or laborers or whatever, like, they would hire electricians, but like to hang stuff on the walls, like decorate, building the shelves, like they hired their own people. And so we were making, at least I was making minimum wage at the time. So if you went on one of these boot camps, you would get paid $10 an hour, which was way more. So there was an incentive for you to go on these, and you would like they pay for your hotel, pay for all your food. So you would want to go on these boot camps. It was great if you were single, because you get to go somewhere, stay for free and everything. And so I went to 2 of them. Micah went on a couple of those. But Mr. Jeff was the regional manager of the stores in like I think Oklahoma and
And
Texas.
yeah, West Texas.
Yeah, so he would always show up, and he was a character because like during the day, like he worked hard, but once that 5 o'clock hit, that man turned into a party animal. That guy was just something else. He didn't become the boss anymore. Think of a mix of Buck Strickland and Todd Packer from The Office. That was Mr. Jeff. He didn't care what he said. He didn't care if it was offensive. Partying. I remember one time this was when we were in Colorado, or maybe this was when we were in Midland. No, this was when we were in Midland. And it was like, okay, we're done. He had the company card for us to go out to dinner. So we're waiting for him and everybody else to get in the car so we can all go to dinner. Well, they're standing out in the parking lot drinking beer and like partying for like good hour or so. And we're just sitting there waiting in the car on them because there was a couple of us that were like, we just want to go to the hotel, go to dinner, go to bed, tired because we're going to have to get up and do it the next day. And they were just partying all the time. And like, it was so bad that like, and he participated in it and led the partying where like we almost got kicked out of some hotels because like him and the group were just like partying all the time. And so, yeah, he was an interesting guy for sure. And the only thing ever I remember about him was just his crazy partying antics. But then I also remember in Denver, and there was like this kind of known thing that he was kind of having this affair on his wife with one of the other ladies that worked for Boot Corral. Like she was in corporate. And I remember like she was riding in the truck with him. And I remember hearing like about the affair beforehand. And I was like, okay, it was me and one other guy in the back of the truck. And she was like, okay, let's go to the American Doll store so we can pick out some clothes for your girls. So she's like going to help him like pick out. And I was like, I think there's something going on here. But that's the thing about boot camp. That was the rule. Like what happened at boot camp stays at boot camp. So
it was like Vegas, man. It was like Vegas.
People
it was
were
insane.
Partying. People were, messing around with each other. Affair. Like it was just wild.
So I had 4 boot camps that I went on total. And it was long days, man. You'd do 12-hour plus days and you'd just be doing it. Sometimes you wouldn't stop on the weekends, depending on when they wanted the store to open. Sometimes it's Saturday and Sunday too. Like there's no telling. Sometimes you had Saturday and Sunday off. I'm going to skip some of the stories because I could go into some. But the one that I definitely remember, so my responsibility, there was me and there was one other guy who was under the age of 21. And so our job was obviously the designated driver. And so we were the DD. We always had to drive his truck around. And so our jobs pretty much were, like Chris said, we would get off, we would drink. And just to let you know how much we would drink, it's at least 6 beers. Like that was the rule. It was at least 6 beers. And so it's like, okay, they're going to drink that much. We'll go to dinner. After dinner, they hit the bars. And so the bars that we were allowed to be in because we were 18, like some of them would allow you in at 18. Some of them would be like, no, 21. If we were allowed at 18, we'd go inside with them. If it was 21, we'd have to sit and wait in the truck. And it always would suck because we would just be sitting there waiting in the truck like, geez, when are they going to freaking come out? Like, I'm ready to go. And I remember this one. And for those of you who are from the area, I've got a few friends who are from the area. And every time I tell this story, they're like, ooh, I know this place. And that's not a very nice place. We were at this bar in Midland, Texas, and it's called Rednecks. And it's in the strip mall. And they allowed 18-year-olds in there. And so we're in there. They're having a good time and everything. But this was also a known spot for like roughnecks, for like oil field workers. And so Mr. Jeff and all the rest of the people are just really wasted. Like they're really, really wasted. And there's this table behind us of these roughnecks. And basically what happens is if you hit oil early, they basically you get a bonus check. You get like a big bonus check because you hit oil early. And so they're all out there partying and whatnot. And both tables have been buying shots for each other all night and things. And we thought it was pretty friendly. And so what are the 2 designated drivers to do? They had like a little arcade area in the back. So we're like kind of playing at the arcade and whatnot. And they had one of these punching machines. Like, I don't know if you've seen these or whatever, but you walk up to it, you punch it, and it gives this big score. And you don't want to punch it stupid, especially in a bar, because everybody then makes fun of you and whatnot. Anyways, I punched this thing and it goes way up there. It was like, I don't remember the scoring, but it was like, like heavyweight fighter or whatever. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, don't mess with this kid. Don't mess with this kid. And so, again, I think the two tables are doing fine and whatnot. And Mr. Jeff comes up to me and he's like, Micah, I got a question for you. I'm like, yeah, what's going on? He's like, you think I could take that guy? And he points to the main guy at the table. And I mean, he's this big old Hispanic guy, like massive, like roughneck guy, like super. I'm like, oh, man, I don't know. I don't know. He goes, if I punch him in the face, are you going to have my back? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I'm already sitting here thinking like, dude, I'm 18 years old in a bar, and if we get into this big bar brawl, like, I'm not trying to go to jail over some stupid stuff. And he's like, all right. Like, he's like, are you going to have my back? And I just told him, I was like, well, you're my boss. So I guess if you get into a fight with him, I guess I'm going to have to. He's like, all right, good. And so he walks up to this guy. And the guy's like standing there and he grabs him on the shoulder and turns him around. And I can't say what he said on the podcast because it's way too vulgar, but he called him a dirty SOB and some other things. And luckily the other guy was so sloshed, he thought it was a big joke and just started laughing it off and ordered another round of drinks. But I was like, oh man, he's like, because he just started chewing him out and then all of a sudden they were just arm in arm, like, yeah, let's get another round of drinks. I was like, oh man, like, and it was a rough spot too. It's not like it's the nice part of town and a nice bar. It's like, nah, we in a rough area. It's like, man, I thought we were about to be in this big old bar brawl. And that was the kind of guy he was. It's like, you're liable to either have an okay time or you could be in a bar brawl at the end of the night where you're like, I might get stabbed tonight or go to jail. Like, there's
out of the hotel. Like, he was so irresponsible. Like, when he was drunk, it's like,
we got kicked out of so many places. I remember getting kicked out of so many places. And yeah, it's not a fun feeling because you're sitting here going like, bro, I'm not, there was even a few places that I was like, hey, can I stay? Because I'm not doing anything. And they're like, were you with him? I was like, yeah, unfortunately. It's like, nah, you got to go.
Yeah.
So
it's like the regional manager of Boot Corral. Like, he's like over all these stores and it's like, you're a corporate guy. So you should like at least be having some kind of like presentation or restraint.
Yeah. Man, he was a party guy. And the last time I saw him was I went to a Texas Tech game and they actually like had him on the field and they're like, our corporate sponsor Boot Corral. And they like had him on the field and all this other stuff. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. It was kind of interesting. And again, like Chris said, by day, you would never know. Like, you would never, like, he would, don't get me wrong, he was very boisterous and he was very like, oh my God, yeah, and like whatnot, but you would never know what goes on at night. You would never know. So, pretty crazy stuff. Well, that was our 3 for our old-fashioned donut. They're definitely all characters, and I'm glad that I don't work with some of them, actually all of them. So, but we're going to move on to our Jelly Donut, which is our jail report. And Chris, you got the jail report this week, so what we got, man?
Yeah, I do. I've got a couple stories that I think you are really going to enjoy. Okay, so here we go. Are you ready?
Yeah, what's up?
All right, this first one, a West Virginia man was charged with holding not one, but 2 deer captive inside his home, according to the state's Natural Resource Police. According to the police, 2 officers were on their way Saturday to boat patrol duties in Cabell County in the western part of the state when they received a complaint of deer being kept inside a home. Officers responding to the home found 2 bucks inside where they had been living for at least a year. This man was keeping them in his home for at least a year. That's wild.
So were they like his pets or what?
I guess they were his pets. I guess he was like, well, it doesn't say that they were like abused or malnourished or anything, but like apparently it's against the law to keep them in your home, or technical term is in a place where they cannot roam free. So that's West Virginia's law.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense. The ones I've always heard about are like snakes, people keeping snakes in their home and stuff like that. But go ahead.
Yeah, interesting. All right. This next one, a guy stole $20,000 worth of comic books. Crazy. crazy. So this happened in Rhode Island, and police are looking for help tracking down some very expensive stolen comic books. In November of 2017, someone broke into the Hall of Comics and stole about 175 comics. They were worth between $15,000 to $20,000, according to an investigator. So apparently one of the guys sold one of the stolen comics, but they found out that it was him and his brother that were like doing it together. But like, can you imagine $175, 170 comics? Like, they must have sold like some mint ones, because
some
are worth
limited
like
edition or like number one prints or something like that. Definitely ones in the sleeves, that's for sure.
That guy
I would
must have
imagine.
known what he was like doing or what he was stealing in order. Because like, you go into a comic book shop, they've got hundreds, if not thousands, of comics like all in the thing. But like, he must have like either
really
one's behind the case or like something. But like,
and I would imagine too that there, a lot of times people know like the comic book owner, things like that, and maybe the guy slipped up. Like, you got to be careful what you tell people, because maybe they slipped up and was like, oh man, I got this case in the back and it's a bunch of limited editions or something like that. Because I can imagine, what'd you say, 70? It was 170. I mean, really and truly, you could probably have a box full of those. And if somebody was like, hey, I got this box in the back or whatever, and like, the exact location, maybe he just knew exactly where to go and exactly what to get,
Yeah. Or was a fan or something like that. I don't know. All right. You are going to enjoy this next one. And there's some like inside details that you're going to appreciate.
Okay.
So a man in Kansas robbed a bank in order to get away from his wife. Okay.
Okay.
You want to guess how old this man was?
I'm going to guess I want to kind of, it's either old or young. Like, I want to say either 60s or 20s. I'm going to say 60s. Like, so he was in his 60s. Was it an old man?
He was 71.
Yeah, man. Okay.
A remorseful 71-year-old man who robbed a Kansas City, Kansas bank told police he hoped to land in prison to escape his wife. He told a federal judge Tuesday that heart surgery had left him depressed and unlike himself when he committed the crime. Though the guy pleaded guilty to bank robbery and could have spent up to 37 months in prison, his attorney and federal prosecutors asked a U.S. District Court judge for leniency. The request was supported by the vice president of the bank and the teller, whom the guy frightened. So I guess they were like, hey, this guy's just an old man. Like, he was probably depressed because of the heart meds, but he was like, my wife's bugging the crap out of me. I'm going to get... Doesn't that sound like an old man, though?
Well, could you imagine? He's like, please send me to jail. And they're like, you know what? Let's give you leniency. And he's like, dang it, man. Like, I'm just trying to get away from it. But that does sound like a Frank Barone-esque thing to do. It's just like, maybe she'll leave me alone if I'm in jail. I don't know. That's wild.
It's just wild to me. Yeah, like those old guys that are like, yep, like back in my day, like, It's like, yep. When they ask about marriage, it's like, don't do it. Worst thing they really do love their wives, but you got to be and you got to say that stuff. All right. All right, and now this is the one that I talked about in the intro. An Illinois man was sentenced on Wednesday to 22 years behind bars for stealing a universal remote control from an apartment complex's common area. That sounds a little extreme, right? But it says that this guy was found guilty after a jury spent only 25 minutes deliberating burglary charges against the 35-year-old man. Apparently, the guy entered the apartment complex and stole the TV remote from a common area before fleeing the scene. However, during the theft, the guy had left behind a glove that officers used to match his DNA to the state's convicted felon database. Now, why do you think, I'm just going to ask you before I tell you, why do you think the guy got such a heavy prison sentence for stealing a TV remote?
I'm thinking either he had some more sort of burglary charge in the past, like maybe this was his first time, maybe this was his third offense, the 3-strike deal, or... Here's my question. So he left a glove at the scene. Was he trying to wear gloves? It seemed like it was a little deliberate. If he's trying to wear gloves and left a glove at the scene, maybe it was a little deliberate. Maybe something else was... There's got to be more to it. There's got to be something else going on. But I'm going to go with he had other charges in the past, like burglary charges in the past.
So you're partially right. So he did have other burglary charges in the past, but also he had apparently been like robbing the apartment complex, and he was like in a string of robberies. And that was just like the needle in the haystack that like led them to all the other burglaries that he had.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. So
Yep.
he was probably, stealing from the maintenance bay and like, okay, I'm gonna steal some shingles or whatever. What do they call him? I almost called him a narcoleptic, but that's the dude who'd be like falling asleep all the time. What do they call the people who just like gotta steal stuff?
Oh, klepto.
Not
klepto.
Kleptomaniac. Yeah, kleptomaniac. Maybe he's just a kleptomaniac that's just like he gets some weird rush off of stealing stuff.
Well, maybe he broke into other people's apartments, but they said like he stole a whole bunch of other stuff throughout the apartment complex. And so maybe he was breaking into people's homes, stealing stuff. And like, this is what caught up.
Hey man, he's like, listen, my remote at my place is broken. I'm tired of standing up and turning on the TV. Or maybe that TV that he stole, he's like, listen, I didn't grab the remote. I'm going to need a remote for that TV. So he went in the common room and was like, you know what? Let's swipe that thing. We'll program it up right quick.
Telling you, man, it's crazy. Probably my favorite one is the guy that was robbing the bank to get away from his wife. That just sounds like the stereotypical old man.
It's just like, why'd you do it? Get away from my wife. She's driving me nuts. Like, oh, okay. All right, man.
You hear the story on that, you kind of feel bad because it's like, man, like he was depressed because of the heart meds and you feel bad.
Was it the heart meds or was it because he just got done with that surgery and so he's at his house 24/7 and his wife be all the time? He's like, you know what? I got to get out of here.
That's probably.
I'm depressed.
Well,
I don't know.
That was it for the jail report. Now we're going to move into the donut hole. And as I spoke about teased.
Alleged.
As I spoke about in the intro, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you, now this is multiple choice, so don't feel like you have to know the answer. But I'm going to give you today's slang, and then you're going to have to try to match it to the equivalent of like late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay, man. And I'll go ahead and tell you, and I'll probably tell you after the segment too. I never thought I'd be this guy. I know that there was older generations when we were growing up that's like, oh, that's what you're saying is stupid and all this other stuff. Some of the stuff that they be saying now, I'm like, man, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. But anyways, go ahead.
The only reason why I know half of this stuff is because I do work with kids. So it's like they keep me up on the times, but at the same time, it's like, okay, that's weird. Okay. What's the equivalent of the word riz? A, mackin', B, hella, C, frontin', or D, bling?
Oh, it's macking.
Yep.
You got that riz, you be macking on a girl, you be macking on somebody. And for those of you who don't know, that means that you be hitting on somebody or that you be having game too, that you be doing well there.
If something slaps today, what is the equivalent of that? If something slaps, whack, fat, frontin', or all that?
Oh, man, I'm probably going to say fat. That's fat.
Yep. That with
the PH.
Yep, that's exactly
with the
right.
PH. Yeah.
All right. You'll probably know this one. No cap is equivalent to what? Straight tripping, real talk, getting jiggy, or weak?
I'm probably going to say weak.
It's actually real talk.
Or real talk? No cap. No cap.
That means like,
I got you.
I'm not lying. Like, no cap.
Yeah, because cap means that you lying or it's a front.
Yeah, if you're capping, you're fronting. That's what that means. All right. If someone says bet, what is the equivalent? A, word, B, weak, C, punked, or D, off the chain?
Say the options again.
And this is for the word bet. A, word, B, weak, C, punked, or D, off the chain?
I'm going to say word.
Yep. It's like...
You know what's funny, too? It's almost become, at least here in Texas, it's almost become, that could be word or that could be a threat. That could be one of the two. Like, if you tell somebody, like, something good and they're like, all right, bet. It depends on the scenario, because if they say, all right, bet, that could be like, oh man, you in danger now. Like, I see how it is. Like, you're going to get it now. So.
All right. Sus. What's the equivalent of sus? Shady, dope, ballin', no diggity.
Shady.
Yep.
Shady.
Sus. All right. Drip, bling, mad tight, all that, or rockin'?
Bling. It's straight bling.
They'd be like, your outfit looks very drippy today. All right. Hits different. Is it equivalent to that's weak, off the chain, straight bugging, or getting jiggy?
Off the chain.
Yeah, see, you know a lot of these.
Yeah, right. I know a lot of them.
Salty. Salty is equivalent to A, bitter, B, hater, C, tripping, or D, played.
I'm going to say bitter, being...
It's more like a hater.
It's more like a hater?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, extra. Drama queen, no diggity, ballin' or hella fly.
Drama queen.
Yep.
Drama queen for sure. Yeah.
All right, flexing. Keeping it real, big pimpin', frontin', or mad chill.
Big pimping.
Yeah, big pimpin'.
You
All
over
right.
here, big pimping.
Fire. Is it whack, groovy, fashizzle, or tight?
That means tight, yeah?
Yeah, that's tight, dog.
Yeah. Oh, that's tight.
All right. If something is mid, is it equivalent to weak, no doubt, whack, or lame?
Now that's weak.
Yeah.
Mid is weak. And I got confused for a while on that because mid, just from the, it's like, that's okay. No. That means like, nah, that's weak.
Yep. All right. Snack. A snack. Looking right, smoking, fine, or all of the above?
It's all the above, man.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, you looking like a snack today.
All right. Sheesh. Dang, snap, whoa, or all of the above?
I say all the above on that one, too.
Do you know how the kids say it? Yep. That's exactly right. All right. You might know this one. Skibidi Riz, Ohio. Off the hook, straight bugging, what in the world, or crunk?
You know, that one I've heard, but I'm not 100%. I'm going to go with A on that one.
Off the hook. All right.
Yeah.
Last one. Gyat. Gyat. Dang, whoa, donk, or fire?
I'm going to say a C. Donk.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what it means.
She got a donk. I used to love saying that. Yeah. I remember I got in trouble because I told a teacher, like, it's like, you just mad because she got a donk and you don't.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways.
Dude, you did really good on those. Those were like...
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was surprised I knew a lot of those because a lot of those are like Gen Z, but mostly like Gen Alpha terms. Like a lot of Gen Alpha kids use that. So
yeah. The one that whenever I was like, Gyat, like, what does that mean? Like, I had heard all the other ones and I was like, what?
Yeah, the one that be getting me is Skibidi Ohio
Skibidi
toilet.
Riz. Yeah.
Or Skibidi Riz Ohio. Like, my thing is, where did that even come from? Like, how do you put those words together and come up with that? That's my question. Like, I don't get that, but hey,
I don't know, man.
it is
It's
what it
just
is,
like,
man.
What? And then I knew Riz, but like if you're a Mag Daddy, they call you the Rizzler. That's what that means.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
Rizzler.
That's why I thought it was funny when that little fat kid, they call him the Rizzler. I'm like, okay,
Dude,
why? Because
this whole family is like in AEW wrestling right now, and I'm like, why are y'all here? Like, y'all add nothing of value to this thing.
Okay, so I actually happen to know this because Instagram has been pumping this on my feed like you wouldn't believe. You know, all they started as was like reviewing Costco foods. That's all it was. They just started reviewing Costco foods, like this kid and his dad. And apparently the dad is really awful. Like if you see him behind the scenes, like he's like certain other people that we know that's really like forceful. And I really feel bad for the kid, whatever his name is. What is the name? Big Justice or whatever.
Yeah.
I really feel bad for him. But then there's like the little kid, the Rizzler, and it's just like, okay. I don't know. I really don't know how some of this stuff gets popular, man.
One hit wonder.
But I guess you got to ride it out as long as you can. But apparently the dad, going back to it, apparently he was like an indie wrestler in New Jersey like a long time ago. So somehow
like he's not any good. And like what's crazy is like I know what they're trying to do by like getting the internet to hop on, but like it just shows how bad that promotion really is. But that's not what fries my donuts. Speaking of what fries your donuts, dude, what fries your donuts this week?
Man, and I'll probably put this over on my aviation channel too, because it has something to do with that. For all you non-aviation people, but people who fly, especially on Southwest, if you haven't heard, the changes are coming. Now, Chris, I don't think you've ever flown on Southwest, have you?
Mm-mm.
So you probably won't have an opinion on this, but
I've heard about the changes though.
Yeah, man, just imagine, because most airlines, you know, you have the assigned seating, you have to pay for bags, things like that. For the longest time, Southwest's identity has been those two things right there. You can pick whatever seat you want, and then you can have 2 free bags fly free. So for those of you who don't know, there is an investment group, Elliott Management. They took over about a year ago, and they bought up the majority of the shares. And basically, now they're making all these changes, and that has been the big two that they are making. And what fries my donuts about all this, and I'm going to sum it all up completely, but what fries my donuts about this is why in the world are you going to change your identity now? I hate it when people take things that are not broken, and go, let's fix them. If it ain't broke, why fix it, man? A lot of people love Southwest for those two reasons right there. And that's what sets you apart. And my thing is, from somebody who pays a lot of attention to it, they're like, oh, well, we need to be more like United, American, and Delta, the other majors. But it's like, dude, you're just a bunch of 730s. You got a bunch of 737s. These dudes are flying international. You can't compare yourself to the two. You were always a low-cost airline. You just got a bunch of 730s flying local routes. The longest thing that you got is from Phoenix to Honolulu, man. Like, my thing is, you can't compare yourself between the two. I'm going to go a little nerdy with it. One of the biggest things that Elliott Management has said to this point is that our debt-to-income ratio is all off. Man, no, it's not. If you look at the other airlines, I can go into specific numbers and things like that. It's like it doesn't even compare. It doesn't even compare. Basically, they have a good debt-to-income ratio. So my thing is, if it ain't broke, why fix it? They're just going to become just like everybody else. And, Chris and I have talked about some other things in life about how it feels bad to wish somebody to fail. But at this point, I hope that they learn their lesson by failing, because at this point, everybody has loved Southwest. They've built a brand on this. I mean, how long, even without you flying, how long have you seen commercials where they talk about bags fly free and they talk about you can pick wherever you want to sit?
Yeah, I've seen that. And like, even, I don't know, even in the past, like a couple of months or years, like they promote like, hey, Southwest is a cheaper option. Like, but I'm like, once you get down to it, like when you pick it, it's like, it's kind of more expensive because they charge it by like your departing flight and your return flight, which I think more airlines are doing that now. But
yeah, they're doing that now. And what it used to be too is like Southwest was one flat cost. So yeah, you did the return flight or the initial flight and the return flight, right? But it's like American and Delta and United have been doing this for a while, where you pick your initial seat. But if you want a little bit of a better seat, or you want to be able to pick your seat, that's an extra cost, and they have all the extra costs in there. People have liked that Southwest doesn't have that extra cost factor in there. Now they are about to have those extra costs in there as well. So they have no defining factor that is going to set them apart. They used to be known for like that fun, free airline that was low cost, that you can kind of have the choices that you want. And they're comparing themselves again to these big guys, and they're saying, hey, I'm going to compare myself to these guys, which what they really should be doing. They've always marketed the low fares. They've always marketed the baggage. They've always marketed sitting wherever you want. They should be relating themselves to the Spirit Airlines, to the Frontier Airlines, the regional guys who are cheap flights. That's who you should be going off of, because that's the model that they built off of. And so my thing is, I hate it. And this is just overall, I hate it when big investment groups come in and change a brand and say, oh, well, we need to make more money. It's to their detriment. It really is. And what it's bad for, what I pay attention to, it's horrible for aviation, because when you have, just like any brand or anything, when it's a monopoly, when everybody is exactly the same, what sets anybody apart? Because when I'm looking at it, it's all going to be based on price. And I don't know if you've heard this, there's a class action lawsuit coming out. If you've flown pretty much in the last decade, the airlines have all been colluding with each other anyways, of you do this for this route, and you do this for this route, and we're going to pump the price up for here. So they've already been doing a lot of this, but basically bringing all this into alignment is just going to make a monopoly between just a few guys. And next thing you know, it's just going to be, the seats are going to get smaller, even smaller than they are now. It's going to become even a worse experience than before, and the costs are going to go up. And so it's just, I understand that the airline industry is a cutthroat market, but everybody is making a profit right now, man. Like, my thing is, everybody's making a profit. Southwest was known for having these things set apart. I can't stand it when people come in and change those things, because they're going to try to squeeze a little extra dollars out of people. What happened to, and this is a prime example, like Arizona Tea. You know why I love Arizona Tea? Because they haven't changed their processes. They haven't changed their price in so long. And I watched the thing with their CEO and founder, and they asked him, like, okay, why haven't you made Arizona Tea more than 99 cents? And he said, well, the production facility that we have is paid off. The whole company is paid off. We're still making a profit right now. And so even if we could probably raise the price and make more profit, why? I'm already a rich guy. Everybody around me is a rich guy. this is my way of giving back by keeping the prices low, because I understand people going to the grocery store, it's going to cost them money. And it's the same thing for airfare. Why couldn't you keep it the same? Because those baggage fees and those extra bits could be the difference between somebody going and seeing their grandma in LA next month,
Well, even to go to your point, and I don't want to take too hard of a rabbit hole, but this does affect it. Bro, it is just getting, and I know people say it, but bro, it's just getting so expensive to do anything anymore. Like, even just to go, to travel, like, dude, it's almost impossible to go fly anywhere. You're almost better off driving if you can, but it's so expensive. And like, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like the income, and I know when you raise prices of income, then that makes everything go up, and inflation and everything. But like, dude, it's just like everything is so inflated right now, and it's so hard to do anything. It's so hard to go on vacation. It's so hard to like get groceries. Like even the cost of eggs right now, like it's
crazy.
insane. But to even like airfare and all that, I know you have to make a profit, but at the same time, dude, like as a nation, I know that there was like 2008, the recession, like all that stuff. But like, I feel like we're kind of at that point, or have been at that point since COVID, where it's just like, dude, it's getting impossible to do anything right now.
Yeah, it's getting impossible. Just like anything, there will be a balance, and it'll get to the point where everybody will be like, screw that, I'm just going to drive. And then everybody's going to start driving. And of course, there'll be gas prices and all sorts of stuff. But the lower demand means the ticket prices will have to come down, because if not, then nobody's going to fly. But as it is right now, the aviation industry, it's so expensive because they're like, oh, we're all making a profit. This is great. And from the last few years, because of COVID, they were losing so much money during COVID. They're like, let's recoup our losses, and we can even, make more and more and more. Yeah. But my thing is, and I understand that the aviation industry is a fluctuating market, but my thing is, again, if it's not broke, why fix it? You had a good formula going. They were making money. They're making profit every year. Maybe it's not as big as the big airlines, but you ain't got the fleet size. You're not flying overseas. You're not doing all this stuff. You can't compare yourself to the two. And it's hard, because I understand that if an investor group comes in and tells you what to do, but at the same time, it's just ridiculous. So that's what fries my donuts this week. I can keep going on and on about that, but it's just...
Oh, now are you going to be an exclusive Delta person?
For the most part, yeah. I mean, really, what it comes down to is price. And I'm not going to do like Spirit or Frontier. I might do a video on Spirit and Frontier and put myself through the torture of like, what did that experience like? But I mean, those guys nickel and dime you to where it ends up being the same cost anyways, or even higher some of the time. So it's just, why do that when you can have a known good experience, right? The whole point about Southwest was, maybe it's not the greatest experience when it comes to their flight attendants or things like that. But again, you get to pick where you seat. You get to have free bags. There's perks to everything. You get to have the boarding lines that aren't like groups 1 through 95, to where you're in group 95 and you sit here and wait. Like, yeah, you have the 3 groups and you have to stand by the pillars, but it's a little bit of a smoother process, but all that's about to go away. So it's just not very good. I am going to get the chance to fly Southwest one more time. They're making a lot of those changes here in late May. I'll have the opportunity to fly before then on Southwest, but it'll be kind of that bittersweet of like, enjoy it while you can, because it's about to go. But who knows? They might change this stuff. People might, because a lot of people are mad. A lot of people in the realm that I know are mad. Even personal consumers are mad. And I've heard that whole thing. It's like, well, I might as well go fly Delta now. Like, why am I doing this? So who knows? There might be a huge Southwest drop off. They might be losing profit and go, you know what? Let's change everything back. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting. So, yep. Let's see what happens.
We'll have to see. But yep, that's what fries my donuts this week. But we're going to go from negative to positive, and we're going to go into our Eclair segment, which is our positive advice for this week on this Monday. And Chris, I think you went last time we did the Eclair first, maybe. I don't know. But I'll go ahead and do mine. So the biggest thing that I've been trying to work on, and I've talked with Chris about that, is never lose your sense of humor. Like, life can really, really beat you down. And in my case, I'm not saying that I've lost my sense of humor. I still have it internally for sure. But there's a lot of times where you have to stifle that sense of humor. you're in professional environments, you're working, you're doing this, you're doing that, you're in front of people that you can't let certain things out. And, when it comes to this podcast, I've even been a little rigid and things like that. I'm still trying to figure out, the balance and things like that. But at the same time, never lose your sense of humor. Be who you are. Even if it's the professional environments, I always attribute it to, people use the term win in Rome, that whole thing, right? Do as the Romans do. I wouldn't necessarily say that, but when in certain environments, there is a time and a place for everything. But at the same time, when it comes to, it's not a time and a place where you have to be serious. Why be serious? Be more fun, be more humorous, laugh about more things, make more jokes, maybe like myself, I like to make a little bit more edgy jokes. I like to throw those in there a little more. Why not, right? I mean, if that's who you are and that's what you like to do, don't stifle yourself. Bring yourself joy. Keep that sense of humor.
Yeah, and there's also medical studies that if you laugh more, you actually live longer. So, which is great. So you go laugh and laugh and laugh, and the Bible actually says laughter is like medicine to the bones. So it's like it really does work. There are studies about it, like laughing is good for you. Yeah, mine is never stop growing. Like growing is always a thing. And I'm gonna copy John Maxwell when he said, like, anybody can be good once, but like, you always hear about the one-hit wonder people who are like, yeah, I remember, and it's always the people, yeah, I remember back in high school, I was good and I was on the football team, and that's like their highlight, right? But like, you never want to stop growing. You want to be consistent in growing and keep doing things consistently. So growth and consistency go hand in hand. So when you are consistently putting in an effort, and then you're looking ahead and saying, how can I grow in this area? Because if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So growth is a natural part of life, and you have to do it. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, and sometimes it's not what you want it to be, but growth is beneficial for you, and it does help you get out of your comfort zones. I would just say keep growing and ways to learn new things, even if it's like not professionally, but it's like, hey, let me learn this new hobby, or let me learn this new fact, or let me learn about this new subject. Like growth helps you in so many different ways. And I know that's like cliche and kind of broad, but yeah, just never stop growing. Don't be that guy that's still stuck in their glory days.
Yeah, don't be the balding guy that's like, yeah, man, I would have went pro if it wasn't for my bum knee. Don't be that guy. Because, to piggyback off of what Chris said, it doesn't have to be learning about, quantum physics. You don't have to be like, oh man, I got to learn this big hard thing, or I got to start this new career or anything. Learn about what you enjoy learning about. Like talking about the whole aviation thing a few minutes ago, I keep up on that stuff, not because I have to, but because it's fun for me. I read about all this stuff. I have opinions on that stuff because it matters to me, but it's because it's fun. It's not because it's a burden or a hassle. It's just like, that's what I'm into, so that's what I like to do. So find something that you're into and consistently grow and learn on that front. And then yourself as a person, you want to keep growing and learning as a person and keep bettering yourself. If you're sitting there going, oh, man, I'm perfect and I can't improve anywhere, well, you got a problem, my friend. You got a problem. So you never want to be stagnant, because we've all been to the swamp and we all know how it stinks. Yeah. But anyways, we are done with our season 17 episode. Wow, my upstairs neighbor dropped something that sounded like a bowling ball and scared the bejesus out of me.
17 on the 17th, bro. Like we're dropping 17 on the 17th.
On the 17th.
On St. Patty's Day.
On the 1/7. So y'all be safe out there, bro. St. Patty's. We're not wearing green, man. We're not wearing green.
Nobody comes. They're like, "I'll pinch you, boy. You don't get out."
It's like, I'll punch you in the face. I'll punch you in the face. Do all that. Don't you touch me. People used to take that really, really serious. But go check us out over on the Doughnut Box Pod, over on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all that good jazz. Go follow us, like us, subscribe to us, leave us a comment. You bots, leave off the comments. We don't want y'all. We don't want y'all. But anyways, so it's been a fantastic episode, but I think it's time for the Starship to take us out. So I'm Micah.
I'm Chris.
And this has been the Doughnut Box Podcast.